Good morning, everyone. I'm Rabbi Noah Levitt, and I want to welcome you to the 10th annual presentation of the Unity and Community Award. This year, we're very excited to be honoring Dick Bogomone. Whether you're joining us from Cleveland, where we all hope it will be a sunny afternoon, or if you're elsewhere, we appreciate that you're tuning in, and thank you so much for your generosity. We're going to start with a brief meet and greet. And of course, we all wish that we could congratulate Dick in person, but in lieu of that, I'd like to just ask several people here who are here with us today to extend a brief word of greeting to Dick. We'll do some greetings before our formal presentation begins, and then several others at the end. I'd like to begin by asking Norma Lerner to say just a brief word of greeting.
You. All right, go ahead and say hello.
Good morning, everyone.
Can you hear her?
Rabbi, can you hear me?
We can.
Say that again.
Yes, we can.
Okay, they can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
We can hear you.
It is a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to congratulate Dick, who I think is one of the most outstanding people that I've ever known. He deserves this honor more than anybody I know, and I wish him and all his family, Patty, and everyone involved with him the very best, always. Thank you.
Thank you. Muriel Weber, could you share a brief word of greeting as well?
Let me. Sorry about that. Okay, I didn't know that was going to happen, but I'm very delighted to participate and to wish a hearty mazel tov to Dick. This is a very, very well-deserved honor. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Dick through various, work in the community over the past few years, and he is amazingly generous. His leadership is outstanding, and the more that I get to know him and the more that I get to know about him, just the more honored I am to know him and consider him a true friend of mine. I had the pleasure of doing some family background research for him. I also worked on his bio for the book, and it was very extensive, as you know, just based on all of his accomplishments, basically occupying two full pages, and that was after a lot of editing. So again, Dick, mazel tov. We're so happy that you're part of our extended synagogue family, and we wish the very, very best to you, and it's great to see you in person here, so to speak, on Zoom. Best wishes to Patty and to Julie as well.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask Albert and Audrey Ratner to share a brief word of greeting. Albert and Audrey, if you're with us, feel free to unmute yourself and turn on your camera. So we'll come back to the Ratners in a moment. Bob and Sylvia Reitman, can you share a brief word of greeting with us?
We can talk now. I know this is
Okay,
very tough.
please.
It's tough to
Thank
get
you.
a bunch of Jewish people to work with technology. So on behalf of Audrey and I, to Dick, Patty, to your family, we extend our love. Dick, we go back forever with our families. You have the single most important quality of a human being, and that is great humility. We love you.
Love to Julie.
And love to Julie.
Thank you. Bob and Sylvia Reitman, can you share a brief word of greeting with us? In
Rabbi, my technology skills don't threaten anyone. But as I said a moment ago, I've had the opportunity to know Dick for a great number of years and in many different engagements within the community. One of the characteristics that he has displayed is that when a new opportunity comes along, he seems to be able to surpass those of his past engagement. And we are blessed to have him as a member of the community. And I congratulate him on today's recognition.
Thank you. We'll do just one more greeting now before we begin our formal program. And I'm going to be stepping away. Sam Honig, would you deliver some brief words of greeting? And I'll call on several other people to offer words of congratulations and greeting after our program.
I'm assuming you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Very good. I just don't have my video hooked up properly. But I want to wish a hearty mazel tov to the Bogomoni family, to Patty, to Julie, and of course to Dick. We go back many, many, many years. Dick, you know, I consider you to be a true tzaddik. And, you know, I've outlined actually and written what I believe a tzaddik really is in the greetings book. But you emulate the true values and the true ethics of our people, of our great people. And I hope to wish you, or that is, I hope that you will have many, many, many years of health and happiness, and wish you just good fortune and luck in anything and everything that you do.
I'm Rabbi Noah Levitt. Welcome to the 10th annual presentation of Oheb Tzedek Cedar Sinai Synagogue's Unity and Community Award. We're very excited this year to honor a true leader in our community, Dick Bogomoni. Our shul plays a vital role in the wider Cleveland Jewish community. Our members are made up of people from a diverse range of backgrounds and observance levels, and our exciting programs always draw a wide variety of members and non-members alike. The importance of community is at the heart of who we are as a shul. Oheb Tzedek Cedar Sinai Synagogue came into being through a merger of three shuls: Warrensville Center Synagogue, Sinai Synagogue, and Oheb Tzedek Taylor Road Synagogue. Each of those shuls themselves were formed through mergers that took place more than half a century ago. Warrensville Center Synagogue was formed through a merger of a number of shuls, including the Titiver Shul. The Titiver Shul was founded around 1900 by Jews who had immigrated from the shtetl of Titiv in Ukraine and made their way to Cleveland. seeking a better life and an escape from the anti-Semitism they faced. Their numbers were bolstered following a devastating pogrom that wiped out the Tetiv Jewish community in 1920. The survivors of that pogrom, showing incredible resilience, were able to rebuild their lives in Cleveland with the help of the already established community. You'll be hearing more about that story in just a few moments. I hope you will join me in wishing Dick Mazel Tov on this very well-deserved honor, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the program.
In the late 1800s and early 1900s, as the Cossacks and Bolsheviks struggled for power in Russia, Ukrainian Jews found themselves caught in the middle, becoming scapegoats for both factions. The Jews of the town of Tetiv were often violently attacked in what the Russians called pogroms. These deadly acts of looting, violence, rape, and murder had become commonplace in Tetiv after World War I, and many in the town fled to other countries. Those who remained lived in constant fear. When bands of soldiers and peasants would be seen approaching the town, the Jews would hide in the surrounding woods and fields, or in the synagogue where they felt they would be safe. But in the pogrom of 1920, the Cossacks and the peasant mob did not stop at the door of the shul. Instead, they blocked the people inside, set it ablaze, and burned it to the ground. Many who tried to escape the flames by jumping from windows were shot. Others were rounded up, marched to the woods, and executed. Of those who managed to survive this pogrom, most fled to Odessa and then to the United States.
Тут знаходилася основна частина єврейського кладовища. Передреволюційні часи, якраз на початку ХХ століття, в містечку налічувалось десь понад 7 тисяч населення, і 20% то це біля 2 тисяч були єврейські.
From the storytelling we were hearing in Ukraine, not much happened with that area, that it was considered cursed, that a lot of the Ukrainians there thought it was a terrible omen that this happened in their town. People from outside Tetiv thought of Tetiv as a black place to go. So the horror that happened there really left a mark on the community. There were Jews, as far as we can tell, who did survive or who came back, but they were not in nearly the numbers. As far as we know, there weren't very many left by World War II, and those were slaughtered by the Nazis. The Tetiver Shul that was built on Lynn Drive in what is now the Glenville neighborhood of Cleveland really became the center of some Tetiver Jews' lives, the more religious ones. There are some wonderful stories from the families who went there.
My grandfather, Morris Strakovsky, was born in Tetiv. He either came in August of 1900 or 1901. My great-grandmother, my grandfather's mother, Ita, who came in 1907, who was also a native of Tetiv. The Tetiver Shul, most of the places we lived, we were always within walking distance. My grandmother, most of the times would spend the weekend with us and walk to shul. We were still going there when I was in my teens, so. And then my parents, of course, continued after the congregation moved on Warrensville. And then a few years ago, I was reading something in the paper about the Cedar Sinai, and they mentioned something about they were having some Tetiv event, and I said, you know what? I think it's time that I supported my heritage. And that's how I got here.
Well, my earliest recollection of the connection with the Tativer Shul was on Lynn Drive, and it was in the early 1940s. On high holy days, my mother used to take us to visit our grandmother. I remember distinctly many times visiting what was the Tativer Shul at that time. It was my father's side of the family that actually lived in Tativ and came to the United States in 1904 and 05. And so I started to look up if the pogrom was in 1920, why did they leave Tativ at the time they did? And I found that the pogroms actually began in the late 1880s. So my guess is that early in the 1900s, my grandparents were aware that they were in a very dangerous situation, and that prompted them to leave and come to this country. Unfortunately, as I said, they passed away before I was born, but they were the connection both to Tativ and to the original shul. As part of my research, I found that there was a group of relatives of survivors from the Kiev pogrom, and they put a plaque together, which I saw a copy of, which listed the families that were killed in the pogrom, and I noticed that there were 5 Bogomolnys, spelled exactly the way I spell my last name, who were on that list.
Common history that Tativer Jews find online, and it's just called Tativer Kurban. It was translated from Yiddish. One of the relief agencies that went to Tativ to see what had happened, it was the document that they created to basically inform people of what had happened. That's where that list of names came from. And that only documents, I think it's about 750 deaths in the Tativ pogrom. But from the research I've done, talking to people on the ground in Tativ who've also become kind of amateur historians around this event, and they're just nice Ukrainian people who want to know what happened, we think it's probably closer to 1,200 who died. We think more like 2,000 fled, so probably double the number of deaths with the number of people who actually left town. There are really no records. And if you think about, what's happened since the pogrom, the Russians came in and basically took Ukraine back, tried to eradicate anything that was Ukrainian, and especially if it was a Jewish Ukrainian. The records just weren't maintained because there was an active attempt to get rid of them.
In addition to the families that are actually members of the synagogue and their children, there are also people in the community that, they know that their grandmother came from Tativ, they know that there's a shul in town, or there was a shul in town at one point. We have stained glass windows down in our chapel that actually commemorate the pogrom, the events of the pogrom. And there's people that are aware, that there is some legacy, and they know that their family background comes from there. But they're not connected to our synagogue in any way. And we really view ourselves as the guardians of the Tativ legacy here in the Cleveland communities.
The dictionary defines resilience as the ability to recover from difficulties, a flexible toughness. The Tativ pogrom survivors had their belongings, their homes, their businesses, and even their loved ones stolen from them. But no one could take away their dignity. Their resilience in the face of unimaginable cruelty, and their strength, forged in fire, drove them to create a better life for their children and grandchildren. This is a legacy we can all learn from. This is a story we must never forget.
The only way we could survive as a people or as a country is through unity. The community has always been the most important part of what has kept us alive as Jewish people and what's kept civilization alive. Richard is one of the best examples of what community means.
I was always impressed by Dick's involvement in the Jewish community in general, but in particular, his involvement with the Jewish Community Federation. Had it not been for Dick, I don't believe that many of its current programs would have been put in place, both because of his generosity and because he went out into the community to solicit support for those programs.
It's the things he works for. It's the people who need the food. It's the people who hear the music that are important to Richard.
My parents began taking me and my brother to concerts at Severance Hall in the mid-1940s. I treasured those moments because I loved the music, and it was amazing to see all of those wonderful people on the stage. I was invited to join the board of the Cleveland Orchestra in 1991, and Ward Smith was the head of the board there. Beginning in 1995, I was elected president of the board, and during that period was when we planned and executed the renovation of Severance Hall, and we began the planning for the same renovation at Blossom. It changed a number of things in the organization. It changed the physical look. It changed for better the acoustics, and I had not only the pleasure of heading up the renovation, but I was actually the one who hired Franz Welser-Most, who is now in his 19th year.
Meeting Dick in that process of their music director search, my impression was that this institution is really in good hands. Dick was actually the one who I got to know best from the board of the Cleveland Orchestra. And I had such a wonderful impression of this man that I thought, if he is the chairman, the board must be really a really wonderful institution. So he absolutely had something to do with my decision in the end to accept the offer.
His family had an Eagle Ice Cream. I think he worked there for a while, but then he went to work for Pick and Pay. His family was close friends with Julie Kravitz, who ran that operation. And when Julie was lost to us, Dick took over that company, having been trained by Julie, and did a great job. He's been a leader in everything because people trust him.
In 1975, I became CEO of Pick and Pay. And one day I got a call from Ann Murata. Ann was insistent that she was going to start a food bank in the area, and she was rounding up people to help do that. The food bank was founded in 1979. People in the inner city were left there because they couldn't leave, and getting food to them was a real problem. The first thing was that we joined the food bank effort and became the first corporation that began to participate.
Dick Bogomolny has been a friend and a partner to the Greater Cleveland Food Bank for decades. When our founder, Ann Murata, first had the idea, the glimmer of a food bank, one of the very first people she reached out to was Dick. She knew that with his expertise in the food industry and his many contacts and partners, he could help bring this idea to reality, and he did. He helped encourage others in the retail food business to donate surplus products, dented cans, and other items that were still perfectly good to eat to this fledgling organization. In its first year, a few 100,000 pounds of food were distributed, and last year, 56 million pounds of food were distributed. What a legacy for Dick and for our early founders, and we are enormously grateful. Dick has always understood the importance of providing nutritious food as well. As a matter of fact, our very first cooler in our old facility was made possible by Dick Bogomolny. We are so grateful for your many years of partnership and support. I hope you're proud of what the food bank has become with your support and with your leadership.
Dick was clearly a catalytic force in bringing the Violins of Hope to Cleveland. Not only of the affiliation that was created with IdeaStream, public broadcasting, but with the numerous donors in our community who came forward to make certain that this program could be, first of all, captured in video and then subsequently disseminated around the United States. I'm not sure it would have happened without Dick.
A friend of mine from Israel, Israel Weiner, who had been at the Jewish Federation, and in 2007 he said to me, I want to tell you about something that you might be interested in. There is a man in Israel, Tel Aviv, whose name is Amnon Weinstein. He's a master violin maker, and he has made it his life's work to accumulate violins that had survived the Holocaust, where in most cases their owners didn't. So some years later, he came to me and he said, I want to remind you that I talked to you about these violins. And now Amnon has quite a bit more, and he's put on a couple of programs using the violins. And would we have an interest now? I went to Federation and I talked to Steve Hoffman, and I told him about it, and I said, Steve, I'd like to try to see if we could put something together with this. And he said, fine, we're happy to have you do that, and if you're able to, we'll be an early supporter. So I decided that I would make the first stop with Milt Maltz at the Maltz Museum. And I was about 2 minutes into my presentation, and he said, we'll do it. And Milt, before I left him, said, I want you to see these plans. And the plans were the renovation of Silver's Temple on Ansel Road and changing it into the Maltz Center for the Arts. So with Milt's vision in hand, I quickly made an appointment to see Barbara Snyder at Case Western Reserve University. And I went in and I told her what Milt's discussion was with me, and she looks at me and she says, did I think that I could get Franz Welser-Most and the Cleveland Orchestra to play an opening concert to dedicate the opening of the building? But also, she and I discussed using the date of the opening concert to be the opening of the Maltz Museum's exhibition on Violins of Hope. I went to Gary Hansen, who was the executive director of the Cleveland Orchestra, and I told him what Barbara's idea was, and did we think we could ask Franz Welser-Most to conduct a concert of the full Cleveland Orchestra that would open the hall and be the opening event of the Violins of Hope. So he called up Franz and said, this is what we're trying to do. And he said, I'm in.
The stunning restoration and the Violins of Hope program could not have happened any place but Cleveland. A community of generous philanthropists came together to support our vision. A community of talented craftsmen and women brought new life to this historic building. And a community of partner organizations led by the extraordinary Richard Bogomolny came together to provide a wide array of lectures, concerts, and programs. Thank you all for making our dream come true.
What more can we say about Richard Bogomolny? You know, in literature, there are those who use a nom de plume. In war, there are those who use a nom de guerre. In the case of Richard, it's a nom de community, because there's nowhere in the community that his impact has not been felt, whether it be in healthcare through his engagement at the Mount Sinai Foundation, or in the Jewish community through his engagement in both local and overseas activities like the Negev Foundation, whether it be in orchestra, in classical music, in one of the hallmarks of our community. Look in those places and you will find Dick Bogomolny. We are blessed that he is among us. And it is my pleasure to present to him this award, which signifies the role that he has played in coalescing our many communities into the wonderful place in which we are blessed to live. Richard? It's my great honor to present you with this recognition of all that you have contributed to our community and to the community worldwide.
I want to thank you for those inspiring remarks and for the co-chairs and all of the other people who supported this event today. It's different, I know, because when it was planned, it was supposed to be in person. And as you know, so many things have changed since the virus that we're almost getting used to doing things in a different way. But there are two special thanks that I want to recognize. One is the fact that so many people in this room and the congregation are part of the fight against anti-Semitism. And as Abe Foxman once said to me from the head of the ADL, that fighting anti-Semitism is a fight on behalf of all of the minorities. And so I am proud to be a part of that effort. The second thing is that I want to recognize the connection with the Tetiver Shul, which is part of Ohab Zedek. And my connection to it has been very unusual, different than I expected it would be, but very satisfying nonetheless. So thank you all.
On behalf of Ohab Zedek Cedar Sinai Synagogue, I would like to thank Dick for his participation in this year's Unity and Community event. It is especially fitting given Dick's connection to our Tetiver heritage and his lifetime of service to the community at large. OZCS plays a very important role in our community. We serve as the bridge from the previous generation, which includes individuals who are themselves descendants of Tetivers and the generation of survivors who witnessed firsthand what happens when hate enters the highest levels of our society. We are blessed that some of our survivors spent the last decades going to various public elementary and high schools to share their experiences, describing what happened to them, to their families, and to their neighbors. When our generation is no longer here, we need institutions like ours and events like this to endure and keep telling our story so future generations can be aware and learn from our past. I would personally, and on behalf of Ohab Zedek Cedar Sinai Synagogue, like to thank the following people for their hard work and dedication: Stuart Musinski, Rabbi Noah Levitt, Gracie Clements, Arlene Smith, Muriel Weber, who is our resident historian, among other things, Lynn Harris, Pacey Elbaum from Milky Way Kosher Restaurant, Bruce Seifert of Venue Studios, Nate Horowitz from Q Audio Visual Zoom Production, and the CJN for partnering with us to make this event possible. And finally, a very special thanks to all of you who supported this event. Thank you all for helping us to keep telling our stories, ensuring that future generations are educated, keeping their eyes wide open and their mouths ready and willing to speak, and their hands ready to take action. And maybe, someday, if we are vigilant in telling our stories, our world could be a place where no one will ever have to say, never again. Thank you.
As we did at the outset, I would like to call on a few people to offer words of congratulations and greeting to Dick. But before we do that, I just want to take a moment to thank all of our co-chairs, Albert and Audrey Ratner, Milton Tamar Moltz, Bob and Sylvia Reitman, Sam Honig, and Lee Corman. for their time and the energy they invested in making this event possible. I'd also like to make special note of Francis Sensor and Stanley Knapp, two of our presenting sponsors. Francis, God willing, will turn 100 next year, and we were blessed to have her and her brother as longtime supporters of our shul. I also would like to thank everyone who came forward with their kindness and their generosity. For closing words of congratulations, I'd like to begin by asking Bill and Anita Heller to say a few words. Bill and Anita, can you share some words of greeting to Dick? Okay, I think we're having a technical issue there. So let's, I'd now like to call on Walt and Jean Kalberer to share some words of congratulations.
Dick, we're so proud of you, and we know that you have done a fantastic job throughout the community. Thank you so much for everything that you have always done, and it's been a great pleasure working with you on various committees. Wolf's here also, and he says hello and thank you for everything you've done.
I'd now like to ask Milton Tamar to share some words of greeting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'll just cancel this telephone call. We wouldn't have had Violins of Hope if it weren't for you, Richard. And I just want to say thank you so much. One of the interesting things that happened subsequently to the orchestra coming over to our facility was one of the violinists came to me. He was not Jewish. And he said, I hope I can continue with the program. He said, I'm having trouble. I said, what's your trouble? Every time I pick up this violin and I realize the owner died, was murdered, killed, and I get tears. And I just can't stop the tears from coming onto this violin. What a comment to make. I have a picture here, by the way. I don't know if you can see it, but here are some of the violins. Do you see those by any chance on the screen? These are the violins that were utilized. I don't think that we're on the air with that. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Unfortunately, your camera is off.
Okay. James, can you put our camera on again? Start my video. Let me put that. Can you hear me now and see me now?
We can hear you and see you now.
Oh, good. These are some of the violins, the first group that came to the United States from Amnon Weinstein, and he put a tag on each one so he wouldn't lose them. And when I met with Franz, he said, I don't want to put on that tuxedo for this. And so this is the picture I took of Franz. There he is. And then he said, I guess I have to have a picture of me at the orchestra. And we took this picture here. And then, of course, we now have a new facility. And you can see that, I think, as well. It's been a phenomenal program, this Violins of Hope. Richard, you called me 2 days before we were going to Israel, and you said you might want to meet with him. He's one of the finest facility people, making these old violins come back to life. I said, of course we want to go. Remember, Dick, I used to play the violin when I was just a kid. In those days, you had lessons in your schools for free. And of course, that was the middle of the Depression. By the way, my father did come from the same community. He came from a small town in the Ukraine. And I think it was on the Dniester River, if I'm not mistaken. All I can say to you, Richard, is Mazel Tov. Tamara and I are so delighted that you have done what you have accomplished. And I'm sure there's even more to come. So in behalf of the Maltz family, thank you, Mazel Tov, Richard Bogomolny. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the last words of congratulation and greeting, I'd like to turn to Patty.
Oh, thank you. Dick, I'm very happy to have this opportunity to publicly tell you how proud I am of you for all that you've achieved in your life. Your reach goes near and far. And I remember the small things, like when former employees from First National supermarkets would call you for your good guidance for a problem they were having in their life. You were always there for them, even if you didn't know them. And to the extent that you've had the foresight to work with people who could grow crops in the desert, in the Negev, and actually execute it and follow through with something that is so successful in the world today. You did it all with such a selflessness, and I know you're continuing to do it. So I'm very proud of you. And on behalf of all of your children, I want to thank everyone who put on this just wonderful event. I know that Dick has been touched deeply by what you've all done. Thank you so much.
Mazel tov again, Dick, on this very well-deserved honor. May you continue to inspire us with your leadership and contributions to the community for many more years to come. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.